Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I worked at a national restaurant chain with a GM that was a turd. He consistently lied about everything, lied about bonuses, lied about benefits, and so on, all the time. I quit after he told me that I owed the company over $4,000 in insurance premiums. The offer for management was 0% employee contribution. But we got to the middle of the year and the budget was not looking good. We were losing employees and customers at an alarming rate. But the GM would not change food order quantities because we need to be ready when we bounce back, and food cost went through the roof. I came to work and he said, "I have bad news. We looked at benefits and insurance will no longer be company funded as of Jan 1st. Jan 1st next year? No, this year. Okay, well, I'll just cancel it and just stay on my wife's insurance. I only took it because it was free to me and would help with co-pays and coverage gaps. That's fine, but we still will be collecting the past due premiums by the start of this year." Well, you can't do that. Actually, we can. I left for the day, seized in violent anger, and went to the grocery store on my way back in. Cue revenge. We had a weird desk drawer that did not go all the way to the back of the desk. It was a modified countertop, and the drawers were not the full depths of the counter. One drawer had a file cabinet under it. I bought a can of sardines in mustard sauce, took off the lid, and sneaked it onto the file cabinet behind the drawer. Then I handed him my keys and quit on the spot, with a warning that if he tried to garnish my last paycheck, it would mean trouble for you jerks, beware. This was 2002. Last week, I was at a bar and the manager was a former co-worker from Terrible Restaurant Inc. She said that after several days, the smell was so bad that the managers had to start doing their work at a booth, because no one could stand to be in there. Ultimately, they decided a rat had died on a wall and brought in remediation experts to start tearing open walls. After just a few minutes, they came out with the nastiest, oldest, grossest wad of biomass and said, "Here is your problem." The file cabinet had to be replaced as it was wooden and the stink juice had soaked into it. She asked if I remembered that smell that started just before I quit, but I had no memory of it. Screw that guy. So let me explain. This was a while ago. I was in line at a Starbucks. The line was quite long and it reached outside, so I was kinda standing near the door to get in since it was raining. As I walk in, a blonde lady about 30-ish comes up to me. She's skinny and looks like one of those women you would see on influencer ads for some weight loss scam. So she comes up to me and gets in my face, or neck. I'm 5'9" and she was like 5'3". I'm still a teenager and I could tell this was a grown woman. So she looked at me and the conversation went like this. "Excuse me, my daughter was here." There was about 4 feet of space in front of me, and that's a man in front. "Don't play dumb. She was waiting for mommy while I was in the washroom." I cringed when she said mommy. "Oh, sorry. I didn't see anybody, so you can go ahead of me." "No, you have to apologize for pushing my baby." "Pushing? I wouldn't do that to anybody." She practically yells and spits in my face. "Say it!" I was pretty much so distraught. I never had anybody yell in my face. I was glad I was wearing a mask and upset she wasn't. A young lady about to leave stepped in front of me to stop her from causing more of a scene. "Ma'am, please stop. If you want to get your drink, you could go in front," as she said. "She needs to apologize to me." "Ma'am, please stop yelling." "Shut the hell up, you idiot." "Ma'am, where is your daughter?" She stopped speaking and looked around, and then covered her mouth. "Where is your daughter?" "I left her in line." "How old is she?" "She's 5. The woman stops and looks at the entitled woman. 5? You can't leave children under the age of 13 alone. They found the kid and it turns out the con woman was a RCMP officer. and she wrote her down and warned her. She never got her drink, but I did. In truth, life is amazing right now, so since my last post, I have dropped enough weight and I'm in the best shape of my life. I go to the gym 4 times a week, all the time balancing my job and raising my kids, maintaining my home, along with pole dancing classes. I'm on my way to becoming a dancer, but for now, I'm sticking with bartending while doing private dances at the club. I'm making great money. I have even started seeing one of the bouncers at my job. We will call him Kyle. He's a sweet, caring man who isn't afraid to speak his mind. He is a former military and he's really good looking too. Think Jack Stiller from Sons of Anarchy. They could be twins. Yes, he knows about my past. Kyle is one of those social media junkies that likes posting just about everything on his Facebook. One night out at dinner, he took a photo of us together and posted it with the caption, "Future wife." As sweet and adorable as that is, I did ask him to take it down as I'm not totally comfortable being on social media just yet, but by then the damage was already done. One of the more cattier girls, Samantha, at the club is mutual friends with my ex, Bill. She knows he's my ex-husband and is aware of the divorce and all of the drama. She is that type of girl that likes to stir up a bunch of nonsense, then sit back and watch the fallout with a gleeful smile on her face. If she wasn't friends with my boss's wife, he would have fired her a long time ago. She routinely shows up late, gossips about everyone she works with, has drunk herself into a stupor more than once, and beaten up a client when he didn't pay her more than she thought she deserved. And that was all after I started working there a few months ago. She is incredibly toxic, and most of us just avoid her. Long story short, she saved the picture and showed Bill, and he went postal. Samantha came into work a couple of days ago and informed me that Bill somehow found out about Kyle, and he is really upset and has made threats to come to my job. As mad as I was, I told her I didn't care. She horribly feigned sympathy and wished me luck. I informed my boss and Kyle of what Samantha had said. They assured me they would keep a lookout and not to worry. Last night during my shifts, I'm behind the bar serving drinks like usual. Ever since Samantha told me Bill was making threats to come to my job, I have been nervously keeping one eye on the door at all times. Sure enough, he shows up with 2 of his equally douchey friends. It was almost comical how alike they looked. Slicked back hair, polos tucked into dress pants, blazers and sunglasses at night. I wanted to bury my head into the floor in shame for having seen anything in this man or considered him marriage material. I try to ignore him and go back to serving drinks. He notices me and makes a beeline for the bar, with Thing 1 and 2 following right behind him. This is when he is intercepted by my boss, Kyle, and one other bouncer, Greg. I couldn't hear the conversation between them over the music playing, but I could tell from their body language that things were getting heated. It began to draw a crowd pretty fast, and before I knew what happened, Kyle grabbed Bill up by his jacket and proceeded to usher Bill out of the door. He was kicking and screaming while Greg and my boss escorted Thing 1 and 2 out after him. It was pretty anticlimactic, but I'm glad no one was hurt, mostly. After work was finished, I asked Kyle what was said. He told me Bill was pissed that I couldn't bother to improve myself during our marriage, and that I had moved on, and he wanted me back. When Kyle established that he was the man in my life, Bill called me a witch and some other colorful words. That was when Kyle grabbed him up and violently threw him out of the club, onto his butt, into the parking lot, and said if he harassed me again, he would mess him up. My hero. Thing 1 and 2 came out right after and helped Bill to his feet. They got in a car with their pride wounded and peeled out of the parking lot. I'm thankful the situation didn't escalate, and so far, Bill hasn't tried showing up to my apartment. I'm hoping he takes Kyle's warning seriously, and I'm happily moving on with my life. Like all good revenge, this requires some backstory. So let's get into it. I was hired for a retail store in January of last year. The store is pretty famous for its security department, and my job as an electronics specialist was to work in close conjunction with them to prevent theft. The uniformed guard and I were buddies. We went to the same college, and all in all, working there was pretty chill. I managed to establish myself as a hard worker and eventually got promoted to be in the lead for my department. Enter dumbass delinquent. He was a new hire at the same time as me. He wasn't just your average idiot. I truly do think his family must have had a special history of stupid to produce such a guy. But it's not something that I'll ponder too hard. He constantly arrived late, stood around on his phone, point blank refused to answer the store phone. And my final straw with him was that he would forget to lock cabinets up after he restocked. I approached him and told him that he couldn't forget that anymore, and I had hoped that would be the end of things, but I was so wrong. He started doing it on purpose. Part of why I worked so closely with the security team when I started was because whoever had designed our store was a crackhead. At least 3 of the aisles in my department were blocked from security cams, and a couple display cases did not actually lock right if you weren't careful. We submitted request after request, but our store was due for a remodel in 3 months, and corporate was kind of hoping the problem wouldn't be too severe. It was. I needed someone at the desk at all times to make sure customers were satisfied, but I also needed someone roaming these aisles due to lack of cam footage. It just so happened that this jerk was more than happy to fill in. About a week after the jerk and I's coaching session about remembering how to close a door and lock it, our security team reported we had some iPads missing from our stockroom. It was a big deal, about $1,200 worth, but the cameras in the back caught nothing, and I counted the ones on the floor. We were square. My security friend asked me to keep an eye on that aisle. In particular, it was one with no camera, and I promised to help him out. 2 days later, another 3 were gone. And also, a PS4. Our head of security flipped his lid. He pulled me aside and basically laid into me. My job as a lead was to be responsible for my department, which made me responsible for $3,400 worth of missing items. I told him that I was watching the department with a jerk like a hawk, and that he had to pick between that and putting someone as a monitor for our stockroom. His response that if the jerk could watch for thieves better than I could, maybe he should be the department lead. I was astounded and angry to say the least. But with $3,400 of theft on my record and nothing on his, the jerk became the lead. It was obvious that he had no idea what he was doing. I basically ran the department by reminding him to sign off on vacation pay, days off, scheduling errors, and direct my co-workers while he sat on his phone. But he was a golden employee who hadn't let someone steal 4 iPads, so my complaints went nowhere. About a week or so after the iPad event and my demotion, I walked down an aisle and noticed something strange. A display case was firmly closed, but the lock was undone. I knew the jerk was up to his nonsense again. He was my manager now, so I just sucked it up and locked it. I went down the next aisle and stopped cold. 3 more cases has the exact same problem. I locked him up and finished my shift without mentioning it to the jerk. I had some petty revenge in mind. My thought process: if I could record the jerk leaving something unlocked, I could get my job title back and pin the theft of the iPads on his irresponsible shoulders. At the time, I thought it was an excellent plan, but dear reader, I wasn't thinking big enough. My next shift, I set up my phone at the very end of the aisle, hidden in between 2 display TVs. It blended in nicely, and I let it record for about an hour before I checked the footage and deleted it if there was nothing. Storage was an issue. I got the jerk walking down the aisle restocking things and then shutting the cabinet but not locking it. Voila! I had him by the balls now. Something prompted me to keep watching the video. What came next made my day and week. The jerk had a friend who stopped by regularly. The two basically spent the better part of his shift talking. However, anytime a manager stopped by, it always looked like the jerk was helping a friendly customer. It pissed me off, but I had my hands tied until I watched the video. The jerk friend walked down the aisle about 45 minutes later and slid open the door and took out whatever he pleased. That particular day he nabbed a laptop and an iPod Touch. The two were careful enough to not take too much at once and not hit every display. About 30 minutes later, the jerk would come to restock the cabinet with whatever his buddy had stolen and lock it up, making it seem like someone was stealing from our stock room. Since the floor counts were right, I had obviously stumbled into their plan before and messed it up without realizing. I brought my phone down to security and showed them the video of the jerk leaving the locks undone and then his friend window shoplifting. We hatched a plan. My security buddy called the jerk down to the camera room and told him that we had found the iPad thief. The jerk looked kinda pale, but to his credit, smiled and asked who had caught him. I told him it was me and that we were going to go upstairs and apprehend him now, but that I felt like he should be there since he was a department lead. The jerk turned a tad green and led the way upstairs. We reached his friend, whose security promptly detained him to be arrested by the police department, but the jerk looked simultaneously sick and relieved. I clapped him on the back and told him how excited I was that the thief was caught and my conscience could rest easy. Then security arrested him for aiding and abetting. The bro revenge. That jerk and his friend had sold the iPads and PS4 online to some idiot kids on Craigslist. Because we couldn't recover them, we took the lost sales out of his last wages and bank account, which incidentally ended up being almost exactly how much he made since he started. Keep in mind he got a pay bump from my job title. In addition, I got a nice little bonus to the tune of $3,400 for catching them, as well as my job as lead back. And because the idiot was tried for grand larceny, he went all the way to the state courthouse where I was waiting for him, filming his entrance to the courthouse with a nice new shiny iPad. Thank you for watching and see you next time.